like to call the meeting to order. All those that can, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I need some help here. All right, roll call, please.
All right, Mrs. Cooper is absent today, but the rest of the board members are all present.
All right, we've got some changes that I'd like to propose for the agenda tonight. The first one is item F in the consent agenda. Request for qualifications proposal for new fire stations. We'd like to pull that out for discussion. And we can do that, I guess at,
Go to 7B.
we could do that. Make that 7B.
Yeah.
Follow that. Another item is, we had, if you looked at your, this was added and put on your, in front of you tonight. I'd like to add to this, the township approving to be a party member to an upgrade at the traffic signal at Watkins Boulevard, which is in relationship to the safe routes to school. The county and the schools have already authorized said that they would be partners, so it's up to us to be a partner in that. I'd like to make that, put that in under new business in 8. While we're in the new business, because we have some other things that the weather's pretty crappy out there, to say the least. I'd like to move the new business item 8A to right after the consent agenda approval, before the announcement, so that we can have that discussion. Allow these gentlemen that have traveled from different parts of Oakland County here to get home without having to listen to the rest of our mumbo jumbo. So I guess we could call it 5G, but not part of the consent agenda. So anything else, Tammy, that you can?
No.
I think we need to add the budget amendment for that sidewalk thing as a separate item. That needs to be voted on. Besides approving, contributing, we also have to approve the budget amendment.
So we could do it as 2 items,
All right.
8F and 8G.
All right, so we're gonna do traffic signal as 8F and G. Budget amendment and traffic signal. All right, anything else that,
Mr. Hamel, just one thing.
Yes.
On the consent agenda 5B, there is no longer a need to reappoint Mary Pat to the Planning Commission.
thank you.
She's here for the duration of her term. Or
Like
there.
it or not.
There for the duration of her term.
All right. So we'll note that when you're voting on the consent agenda that we're not voting on you. You've been stuck in there already, so. All right. Motion to approve the consent, the agenda as modified.
Motion to approve as modified.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported. A vote, please.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
All right, let's see if I can keep this thing organized. All right, so, on that note, we're gonna start off with Industrial Development District. In your packets.
You need to vote on your consent agenda, don't you?
Can you just do
That
that?
No,
was
we
the
did that
agenda.
as agenda.
Agenda.
What was
I'm not here.
I thought you voted on approving the agenda as.
Oh, we did, thank you. That's why we have the attorney here to keep things in line. Okay, so consent agenda approval with changes.
I move to approve the consent agenda with item 5F being removed.
Oh, yeah.
I have a question on the meeting dates. We
Pardon?
took, that's part of the consent agenda, the meeting dates.
Uh-huh.
We took one of the March meetings out because of the joint meeting, but the date in here says March 21st. And that's the same night as the ZBA, that's the third Wednesday, so.
The ZBA is gonna be moved to a different room. This is to accommodate the, I'll be attending the clerk certification the week of the 14th. And we decided to move it back a week so that I can be here for the meeting.
Why don't we do it the 28th, and then we had those two meetings scheduled originally. You know, then you don't have to interrupt the ZBA, and it was one of the meetings we already approved anyway. So that's why I asked the question last meeting, which one are we gonna get rid of for the joint meeting?
So we'll still have one regular meeting, is what you're saying, and then the joint meeting.
Right. The joint meeting's in January.
That just means we'll be going an extra week between the February and the March meeting, and then a short period between the March one and the April one. This is a little bit more splitting the difference to do it on the 21st.
I don't have any issues with the date.
Well, it's consistency for the public too that I get concerned about. You know, our meetings are the second and fourth Wednesday, so.
And we're publicizing this to make it aware of the date change. I don't disagree completely. I mean, anybody else have any comment about it?
What's easiest?
I prefer to do it on the 21st so that there's a little bit more time between the March meeting and the April meeting. If we have it on the 28th, it stacks them right on top of each other.
Does that need to be resolved tonight?
Yeah, we have to publish this. I mean, if somebody wants to make a motion to change it, we can do that and consider that motion. Otherwise, we probably should just move on.
Yeah, wouldn't you move to pull 5E off the consent agenda for separate action?
Or just get a general consensus and carry it out.
Right, I mean, right now you got a motion to approve the consent agenda in its entirety.
And the staff for now will take off E.
I don't think if you're acting on all these items at once, that you should individually modify items on the consent. You pull them off and act on them individually is I think the procedurally proper way to do it.
Okay, I would move to approve on the consent agenda. I'll amend my motion to be items A through D, and E and F we're moving for separate discussion.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported.
How do you vote?
Vote please.
Mrs. Chenoweth?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
Then just take up the schedule now.
5B.
All right. I move we leave the schedule alone as printed with the March meeting being March 21st, 2018.
Support.
Moved and supported. Vote please.
I vote yes.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
All right, now,
You know, if we get that meeting done in 45 minutes, then there's no problem. They're in here at 7:30, since we're goal.
Don't have me come.
Gary, we'll be here in
so we
20.
pulled that out, we voted, we made a motion on that, we're in the heck of it now, so.
Are we gonna talk about the fire RFP later or now?
We're gonna have that discussion later.
Oh, that's right, that's 7B.
Right.
So you're at announcements.
So now we're at the Industrial Development District. So, what I'd like, I guess what I'll do is give a little pre-op here. We had, actually the three in-house officials made a trip to one of our local industries, Midwest Glass. Can't remember the date exactly, a month or so ago.
Right.
And they had presented a request for tax abatement, potential for a tax abatement. And Mr. Dan Hunter was at the meeting. Dan's, what's your official title, Dan, so that we can,
I'm Deputy Director, Oakland County Economic Development and Community Affairs.
there you go. And Paul Gobiel, who's, you want to explain your relationship to the Midwest Glass?
Yeah, I work with Midwest Glass on a consulting basis to work on projects.
And I'm Jim Iaquinto, president of Midwest Glass Fabricators.
So the exciting part of that was, that particular meeting was that we got to take a tour of an operation that I don't think anybody realizes is going on there. They have a, I guess you'd call it a tempered glass business. They make lots of shower doors,
Correct.
anything that were, windows for buildings, quite a number of things. And what has, I would say, come to light with the security issues going on in our country and around the world, a need for safety glass. And so they're proposing to expand your facility significantly and to go into the safety glass business. Well, I think the request, I think the thing that is about that is it's new equipment, new business, and as many as 50 employees.
50 employees, that's correct.
That's pretty exciting to have that availability in our community. Now, they also have, part of their company is in Louisville, Kentucky.
That's correct.
And so they have a facility down there, and it's not that they were trying to strong arm us into, hey, we're gonna move if you don't help us with this, but let's talk about how it makes sense to work together to try and promote the growth of business in our community and jobs especially. And so, my opinion, it was very exciting to have that opportunity to see this and to see what we could do with that. So, shortly after that, Scott Hohenscheid. Scott, would you like to describe your business to the board here? So.
Yep, we are developing an industrial park behind 59 West called the Oakland Business Center. It's a 32-acre site with 11 buildable sites on it. The first building is complete, which is almost complete, which is a multi-tenant space. It's about 34,000 square foot. And we intend on leasing industrial space or space for the contractors in the community, et cetera, from anywhere from 2,000 square foot to the entire building. So we can cut the building up into 2,000 square foot increments, and it has bay doors for the tenants. And we're looking to help Highland grow and organize the industrial community in it. We have a pretty exciting project that will also bring jobs to Highland, I hope.
So the irony on this is that in both cases, Dan had kind of had a common involvement here, and Scott and Dan came and had a sit down with the in-house officials, and we started to think about this Highland has really a fairly small industrial district, but it's all vacant, it's mostly vacant land, and, so vacant industrial land doesn't really add a whole lot of benefit to the community if there's nothing happening on it. So how do you make that move forward? And I think when we've got the economic times that we have right now, how do you make that move forward when the getting's good? And so we discussed how can we do that? So instead of doing it piecemeal, one at a time, and another person comes in and asks for a tax abatement, why don't we develop a district? So in your packet, you'll find that there's a letter that states that our in-house engineer and planner has put together essentially the elements of what we would need to do this, so that instead of reinventing or repeating over and over again the same process, we can open it up for people that would be interested. I think it's number one, Midwest Glass having that opportunity. It only applies to the new part of the facility. It doesn't apply to the older stuff. It's a major investment. And then Scott's is a different scenario in that this would open up an avenue to say, hey, I've got this property here that's already industrial and would be a great place for maybe some manufacturing to come in and create some new jobs. Now, it isn't an abatement for every kind of business. It's specific to industrial and creating jobs and manufacturing process, that type of thing. So I think this is a really a top thing to do for our community, see what we can make happen here. Now, I'm going to see if I can get to the map. On the screen there, you see the purple and the light purple areas. It's got a cross hatching in it. This is the district that we're recommending to make as an industrial development district that would open the door for these tax abatements. This, where the arrow is Scott Honscheid's property. This is Midwest Glass. I'm pretty sure that's the parcel up there. We've got down over by, right in this area here, over by the library and the post office is where Magnetic Products is located. They actually were benefited from a tax abatement a number of years ago, and that's expired. And they've now developed some international business from here. So it's pretty exciting that we've got a company that's gone out, to South America. It looks like they've garnered some business down there. Maybe who knows what that relationship can make. They also, the Rhodes, who own Magnetic Products, also own this parcel. So this opens up a pretty good opportunity, I think, to say to the broader community that we do need jobs here, and we do need to have a variety of types of industries and opportunities for people that live here as well. And this is a good way to promote that, and maybe on a scale where it develops some excitement. Now, the thing that I think is most exciting for me is that in the process of working with the Economic Development Group at Oakland County, over and over it was expressed how if you involve yourself in this One-Stop Ready program, then we know that your community is on board with working with business owners and to help develop a good, healthy business environment. But one of the key things was that if there's somebody from another country or another area that may be looking for the perfect spot to locate, and we have that property and we have this opportunity, Oakland County is the ones that'll be probably pointing the finger and say you need to go to Highland Township and you need to talk to them about that. And that's a valuable asset. That's a tool that we can really benefit from as a whole as a community. We've already allocated this as an industrial area. It's not like we're trying to expand it or change it any other way. It's just make it more readily available to get it developed and get some revenue from it. So on that note, I'd like to, before we go into discussion on it, is to make the motion to start the process to begin this industrial development district. So the first thing that will need to be done is we're going to need to schedule a public hearing. I move that as part of the motion, that the public hearing would take place on January 10th, and that the limits of the district are described in a document that was attached to this, and this resolution that has been put together. So as part of that motion, we're going to need to identify each parcel, which is in here, send letters.
Right, the motion would be to establish the IM Industrial Manufacturing and TR Technology and Research Districts as an industrial development district for consideration at a January 10, 2018, 6:30 p.m. board meeting, notice of which should be given to all property owners in the district. That's how you get it started.
That's what I had the conversation with them earlier, was to get that motion held. So,
Under Public Act 198 of 1974.
all right, thank you. That's the motion. So can I get a support on that?
Does that include the public hearing then too?
Right, you would. The statute actually says you have a hearing. It doesn't call it a public hearing, but as a practical matter, the public's going to be heard from, because not just people in the district proposed can get notice, but anyone can come and talk about it.
Okay. Support.
Okay, moved and supported?
Discussion?
Yes.
So all of the purple, you're saying all of that is already industrial?
Yes.
You're not
It's-
changing anything?
We're not changing anything on it.
And can we hear from Mr. Hunter before we, I'm kind of just, I feel like blindsided by this. I'd like some information
Absolutely,
more
that's-
about what the district does for the community and
Yeah,
what
sure.
the benefits are.
Dan Hunter again with Oakland County Economic Development. The PA 198 is a two-step process. And the first step is the creation of a district. The second step would be the particular business, the manufacturer. And it has to be a manufacturer. They have to be adding value, like Midwest Glass, adding value to the product. And that gets reviewed ultimately by the State Tax Commission. So that's the second step. The district first, and then an application, they call it a certificate. And so what you're considering here with a larger district is something that I've seen in other communities. Auburn Hills, 4 or 5 industrial parks up by the palace. Industrial Technology and Research Parks 20 years ago. They created a district, and of course, look at that area now. That was a piece of it. Wasn't the only thing.
So what's the difference between having it already zoned and calling it a district?
The zoning is just for, planning
What is
purposes,
allowed.
site plan review, and your zoning ordinance and your master plan. It's similar, but under the law for the tax abatement, there's a district. There's also a similar law for commercial businesses, commercial tax abatement.
So are you saying this is like a vehicle then for tax abatements for
Yes.
anybody that builds in this
It would
district?
give, it would give those property owners in that district, whatever it is. It could be a singular property, like Midwest Glass, or like the Oakland Business Center. But the idea here would be a larger number of properties. So those property owners, or future property owners, could come with an application if they are a manufacturer.
You can have,
To be considered for the tax break. And the tax break, everything that's being paid there now continues to be paid, but it's generally about 50% of the new property taxes on the real property are abated, and yet 50% go to all the taxing entities, plus the jobs. So that's the benefit to the community.
Well, we give tax abatements anyway. In fact, I know Midwest Glass got one several years ago from us, so I guess I don't understand the purpose of doing the district. That's where I'm having a hard time
We
understanding.
wouldn't have to do it every time for each property one at a time.
If
Yeah.
I may,
Yeah, Karen.
an individual property owner can ask that their property be treated as a district. I believe in this situation, Mr. Hamill's recommending that the district be broader than the one known property owner that is expected to apply. So that is flexibility the township has at its end. It is the one that controls how much or how little property is in a district, or quite frankly, whether it even will create one or not. The second step is individual property owners that own property in an established district apply for the actual tax abatement, and that comes to the township first. And the statute outlines a rather extensive list of things that have to be done and considered by the township. And if the township approves, then it goes to the state tax commission, who, as Mr. Hunter's indicated, has the ultimate approval authority.
So having a district just eliminates that first step in.
Yes, the
getting
district is
tax
step one. Step two is individual property owners asking for the abatement. And the statute allows township board to approve abatement for up to 12 years. It allows for the township and the property owner to enter into an agreement to memorialize, if you will, the representations and promises made by the property owner that led the township to grant relief. But again, all of that goes to the state tax commission. The 50% that is paid, the statute calls it an industrial facilities tax, but it is, they do pay something. They don't get full abatement on all real property taxes. It's just called a different name.
And who monitors whether they're complying with what they promised to do to get the tax abatement?
If the township entered into an agreement with such a property owner, I would think the township would monitor or build into the agreement that the property owner has reporting obligations to document their compliance.
Dan had provided us a sample agreement, and that sample agreement had some requirements in there for reporting annually to the township the status of the various items that had been agreed to.
The other thing, by creating the larger district, it allows the property owners, the county, yourselves, commercial brokers, to market that as an additional possibility, subject to your decision.
Feature.
And that can be very beneficial.
Thank you.
The other thing is, I'd really hate to lose opportunities when we the irony is these are people that are Highland people. And, we want, it'd be nice, I know there's other people in this township that want to invest in this township and do have businesses that are in other communities and industrial. And this is a perfect opportunity to kind of join together and make it one step easier, one stop ready, if you want to put it that way, for these properties and the owners of those properties to be able to market them to the best of their ability and to the best benefit to the community. So that's what I'm geeked up about it. I think it's a great idea. And it doesn't change any of the zoning, doesn't change any of the requirements for the businesses have to engage in. They're still going to have to go to the planning commission. They're going to have to go through all the same steps they would for anything else. This just allows them to get a benefit, to get the ball rolling. And the Midwest Glass, huge investment, significant investment.
Big investment.
Just an example, you told us when we were there what your annual sales are.
That's correct.
Would you like to let the
Yeah,
rest?
we do about 20 million in sales right now. We came here in 2001, so that's a little over 17 years ago.
with 25 employees with a promise to add 25 more, and we're over 100 employees now. We do business in actually throughout the Midwest. We go to, we have trucks running to Nashville, Knoxville, Louisville, Cincinnati, Indianapolis, and just about every day. You know, what we want to get into is we do safety glass right now, so we temper glass. We make safety glass, and we want to get into security glazing glass, making bullet resistant, bomb resistant, and hurricane windows for all over the United States. So that's what that's the type of equipment that we want to invest in. And like I was telling Rick at our meeting, that you know, the jobs that we're going to create aren't just, you know, minimum wage factory jobs. They are accounting people. They're project managers. They're engineering people, truck drivers, machinists, you know, maintenance people, like that.
I was on the board when you got that person.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
that was a while ago.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
Yeah. But you know, we've done quite well, and you know, with Highland Township, and we love it here. You know, and it helps at the beginning because it's a huge investment, and the cash flow is tight, and you want to keep going, and it's important for us. So.
All right. Anybody else have any questions?
No, it's good news.
Just have a comment. I drove, I don't know, the other day I was driving behind 59 West, and I happened to drive back, and I didn't realize how fast things were going in the industrial park back there. It was pretty impressive. I mean, driving back there, the buildings, I don't know, like you said, it's almost up, and where it needs to be is pretty cool. It's a neat.
The first building is
Yeah.
up, we're just waiting for the utilities.
I didn't expect that. I just didn't know what to expect. I went, wow, it's really moving quickly. So that's cool. Really good, great job.
Yeah, they were able to do all that work, and the gas company, electric company still can't get the utilities to the building. So it's
They're pretty good at taking naps, so.
yeah.
Sorry.
So, you get back there, you mean? So, all right. So we have a motion and a second on that motion, and vote, please.
Mr. Salvia?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
Gentlemen, yes, Gary.
Go ahead and finish. Just one final comment, though.
Yes.
The board members may want to start thinking about considerations in terms that you would look at if you establish this district. I mentioned earlier the abatement can be for up to 12 years. And since you've established you've talked about establishing a broad district, you may want to consider criteria that you will, establish independent of any given application regarding what you're looking for to get 12 years of abatement, maybe a sliding scale. And I don't know what that would be, jobs, investment, what have you, but you don't have to do that, but you may want to do that. And so you establish, without regard to any application, what your criteria and considerations are going to be.
Well, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, that I think working with the county and working with MEDC, there's a lot of opportunities to look at how we could craft those types of things and bring that information back to the board. So I think that's what we're definitely going to have to do, because one is after tonight, or after we get rolling on this, which we've decided we'll move it forward, that's kind of a switch on that says that these guys can now talk to Lansing about what they need to do, and so it's kind of get the ball rolling, and so we will have to get engaged in that part so we have all the documentation and have the board aware of how that's going to work. So on that note, gentlemen, thank you very much. Thanks for being a part of our community, and Scott, thank you for starting your business there. You're doing a fantastic job, and we want to make sure that everything stays healthy in there. So I think the best way is we continue to work together as a team, the community and the local government. So we'll be in touch, and we'll keep each other posted, and let's move forward. Thank you very much.
I think that was a hurricane warning that went off.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And thanks for coming out in this, this weather. Appreciate it.
All-wheel drive stuff.
Okay, the next item is announcements and information inquiry. The township offices will be closed on Friday, December 22nd, and Monday, December 25th, in observance of the Christmas holiday. The offices will also be closed Friday, December 29th, 2017, and Monday, January 4th, 2018, in observance of the New Year's holiday.
Could be January 1.
Yep.
Well, they put 4 there.
That
Oops.
would-
Oops.
1. Thank you.
Your employees don't like me, but
Yeah, they just lost some free days there. So. Did Julie do that? Okay, so the next item is the Dodge Caravan. I just wanted to let everybody know that we're going to put that Dodge Caravan up for sale on the market. Every time we turn around, there's something not working on it. Steering, brakes, rust. It's a safety issue, so we're willing, ready, and able to pass that on to somebody else that might want to put an investment in it.
What miles are it?
I don't know the miles right offhand. It's probably 40, 50. Not a lot, but
I mean, but,
Not a lot, but they get a lot of wear.
yeah.
well, just in case we know somebody's looking.
Well, it'll be
close
advertised, so.
To go for bids for, any other bids for it.
We'll do closed bids and open them at the next board meeting.
And it'll be put out there in every tool that we've got to put it out there on. Okay, next item, public comment. So, what we're gonna do with public comment, what we've been doing is, anybody has a public comment, comes up to the podium, you've got 3 minutes. Lynn, do you have a comment? I'm just teasing you, you got 3 minutes, so that we all understand the rules there, and I don't know how many people are gonna wanna do a public comment tonight, so, we would like to get everybody in and out of here, because of the weather, so, first one, public comment? Yes, sir, please stand up here.
And state your name and address.
Joseph Joswiak, 2747 Cloverdale. Is this an appropriate time to ask questions as well, or just make a statement?
it's just an appropriate time to make a comment. The board does not answer questions in response to those.
Directed to the fire chief.
It's not for questions to the fire chief. You can state concerns regarding the fire chief if you wish.
Okay. I had some concerns about the fire department budget this year. A few things that seemed like that might have been purchased that didn't seem were necessary. And in that budget, it was outlined a certain amount to be spent and overages were done. Looked like in the budget spot for computers and telephones, and vehicles. It's my understanding the chief purchased a new rescue pumper, or is in the process of doing that, and a new chief vehicle, or another transportation vehicle, or something like that. So my understanding that we had vehicles that worked. I'm not sure what's wrong with our Rescue One that's currently there, or if it is even still there, I don't know. And there was a concern I had about a policy that is either implemented or is not, I'm not sure yet, called duty tones.
What?
Called duty tones.
Okay.
This policy, in my opinion, is maybe counterintuitive to what we're trying to do. You know, we currently run an all-call system, or as I've heard people call it. In that system, as a lot of people know, call happens, People that are at the station go on the call, and other firefighters respond from home and cover the station. In this duty tone policy, you're gonna have your firefighters respond from the fire station, and they're gonna decide whether or not firefighters respond to the fire station. There's maybe some rare chances where you're gonna have a situation where, you know, they go to that call and it's not deemed necessary for firefighters to respond to the fire station, but another call happens and those firefighters have to respond from home. So this seems to me that there's gonna be a longer period of time in response for that, where in our current system, we don't really have that period. So, and I was on the fire department for a 7-year period. If we implement a duty tone policy, that's also gonna stop a lot of firefighters from receiving valuable experience. If they're sitting at home while a few others are doing the job, they may not be able to expose themselves to some hard situations that they go through every day. So.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments. Anybody else like to make a public comment? Lynn?
Lynn Hansford, 1528 Middle Road. So I'm going to speak to the unjust way that I was treated at this podium November 8th, 2017. Mr. Hamill, when you said to me that night, 3 minutes, Lynn, 3 minutes, and I responded to you and said, I got it, Rick. I was acknowledging that I had 3 minutes left in what I thought was a 5-minute public comment period. Excuse me. Now, why wouldn't I think that? Why wouldn't I think that? This place has been run like an open night mic for the past 5 years. Suddenly, there's a 3-minute rule with a police threat. That 3-minute timer rule was not announced publicly. It wasn't stated on the agenda, not on the website, and to my knowledge, it's not a township policy. That assault should never have happened to me or any Highland Township resident that steps up to this podium. We have a constitutional right to come here and address the public officials without hurdles and roadblocks being imposed to stop the process. What happened to me that night went beyond the pale. I have taken your action, Supervisor Hamill and Clerk Flowers, as a personal affront. It was premeditated and orchestrated by both of you, and in addition, I'm rescinding my acceptance of your apology from that night, Mr. Hamill. To me, this room drips in irony. Before every meeting, we say the Pledge of Allegiance and we say, "And justice for all." We invite students here to observe the democratic process with our public officials. We honor our veterans that sacrificed for our constitutional rights. But when you come to Highland Township to address the board, those same rights are being threatened. I'll end with this. When you see an injustice like what happened to me that night, when I was threatened to be removed by Highland Township Police Department, me, a 65-year-old senior citizen, when you see an injustice like that and you do nothing about it, the next time they'll come for you. And I'd like to make a suggestion. If you're going to continue with this 3-minute rule and a police threat, that you put that on the website and the agenda so everybody knows what the rules of engagement are.
Any other public comment? Okay, we'll move on. Pending business. Tammy, you want to take that one?
Okay. So this is bringing back the item from last month where we talked about consideration of adjusting the buyout for the healthcare plan for those who opt out of coverage from from the township. And you had asked for some examples of what the payouts would be. And so I provided this chart to show what the premiums are for, you know, these sample employees, what they're getting on the current buyout plan, and if we adopted a 50% buyout plan, what the payout would be. And then I identified a couple potential people who may consider doing a buyout if we increase to the 50% buyout, and showed the savings that we would see with that plan down there at the bottom. Just to launch this, I'll go ahead and make a motion that we, let's see if I can get to that. Beginning January 1st, 2018, that the township will pay 50% of the total premium costs on a monthly basis for the eligible health plan for participants who opt out of coverage. The buyout for elected officials would be limited to the state hard cap for single coverage to comply with the limits of coverage passed by the board on June 20th, 2016 and October 26th, 2016.
Okay, support on that?
Support.
Okay, moved and supported. Discussion?
Discussion. You know, Tammy, when we met last time about this, what I asked was who of the current employees who would opt out? And that's what I thought you were coming back with. Because to increase the buyout to 50% in premiums, you're changing what costs now $24,000, and it's going to be close to $40,000 for the buyout. So there's not any savings there, and all of these yellow highlighted ones mean nothing because none of those are going to change.
We can consider the fact that the people who are currently on buyout, you know, if they're taking insurance to their spouses, that can change at any time.
That's right, that's right. So you're not going to get them, they're not going to take insurance now unless something in their life changes. In fact, they can't go back unless they have one of those life-altering events or whatever they call them.
Every year
So,
you can
excuse me, can I finish, please? So you have two potential employees that might take the buyout if you up the premium. And the savings to do those two aren't going to come close to what it's going to cost to up that buyout. The upping the buyout has no benefit to the township at all. It's only going to benefit the people who are getting buyouts now. And I don't see any purpose to do that. You're not even guaranteeing anybody that would take the buyout that are now taking insurance.
Right, there's no guarantees with this. There's no guarantees that the people who are currently buying out will continue to buy out. Their spouses' plans could offer a higher buyout on any given year. And each year an employee would be evaluating, do they want to stay with their spouse's plan or do they want to come on the township's plan? Or their spouse could retire or they could get a divorce, anything like that can happen. You have to think about the fact that when you make these decisions, there's no guarantee of anything that could happen. Even the people that might consider it this year, they might change their mind for the following year.
That's right, you get no guarantee, but the knowns are, right now it costs $24,000 per buyout. If we go to this, it's gonna add $40,000 to that cost. And the people who might possibly take the buyout instead, the savings doesn't match what it's going to cost. There is no savings to the township to do this.
Well, it doesn't add $40,000 to the cost. It goes, we're currently paying out $24,000 of buyouts with the people who are currently on buyout, and then the total would go to 43. So the difference between 43 and 24 is something like 17.
It still is no savings. There's no savings to this township to up that buyout.
There is no guaranteed savings, but if we can keep more people off the plan and if we can encourage more people to leave the plan, the savings are not only the premiums, but also the exposure on the deductibles.
So the exposure this year, you know, the potential exposure is $79,300. we budgeted for 2017, 40,000, and we're gonna probably hit that. You know, so the exposure is like a risk we took going to that policy. And it's been a heavy use year, so we did get a lot of people taking that, but it's still not at its high point. So you know, I don't think it's fair to count that into potential savings, and potential doesn't count in this anyway. You know, if we're gonna make them, if we're gonna do action to save money, that's fine, but this is not gonna save any money. This is gonna give some more people some more money in their pocket.
You can certainly look at it that way.
I do look at it that way. That's what the numbers tell me.
If, based on certain assumptions. Based on the assumption that the people who are currently taking buyout will always continue to take buyout.
If they were gonna change, they would have done it at the beginning of the year. That's when all the changes take place for healthcare. And I'm not willing to risk spending an extra $20,000 for a potential savings that isn't there.
Quick comment too, were you done, Mary? That, another thing as far as, my feeling on this is, a lot of people would rather take the insurance through the township because there's no, they get 100%. It's not an 80-20 or anything. I know new people coming in it is, but for current employees, and I know of no other place where you get 100%. I know where I worked it was 80-20 and there was a cap on it too, and where my husband was, I know of no other place that's 100%, so I can't imagine why they would go on to their spouse's plan. I think they would stick with one where it's 100% funded. I mean, that's my feeling now.
It all depends on what the buyout is offered with their, you know, spouse's employee, you know, plan. And a lot of companies are looking at this, a lot of townships are looking at this. Jack from Burnham Flowers brought this ideas to us because it's been being considered by other townships as well. And I can understand that some people might not agree with it, and I understand that. I think it's a good idea, but, you know, we're not all gonna agree all the time.
Absolutely. And we always have to be looking for ways, so.
Yeah, if it was gonna save money, that's one thing, but it's not. There is no savings for the board to do this at this point.
Can I ask, when you changed it from, and when it went from 1,000 to 2,000 back in 2007, I think, were you guaranteed savings at that point?
In 2007?
Yeah,
I
it went
wasn't
up.
on the board then.
No? When did you start here? You got elected in 2000.
2007 it went up?
Yeah, it had been prior to 2007, it was 1,000 and 2,000, and then at 2007 it increased from 2,000 to 4,000.
And at that time,
I can't answer that
there was
question.
no banding.
Well, that's got nothing to do with what we're talking about now. You brought this up to save money for the township by getting people to take a buyout. It's not gonna happen. It's gonna cost the township more money to change this buyout to whatever percent it is you're looking at. And that's the bottom line. In 2007, I believe that was Mr. Polidori that proposed that change. It didn't make any difference in savings, I don't believe, at that point. You know, and I don't know that it got anybody to, you know, that was 10 years ago, I don't remember.
Well, I can tell you right now that,
And it doesn't matter anyway.
you say there's no savings, and as an individual, if I did that, I'd save the township $8,596 by buying out.
All right, but that still doesn't cover
That's
the
still a savings.
20,000. Yes, but it
Still
still
a
doesn't.
savings. You've
it
got,
doesn't come to
there's
that
other people that,
40,000.
the only way we know whether this is gonna work or not is it gives the opportunity for people that, especially in bandit, as they get older, their insurance costs a lot more. And what it does is it changes the relationship because of the 50% of premium. The premium's based on age. And that's where the differential comes in there. Now you can, you know, you don't believe it's gonna happen, that's your choice. The opportunity is to save some money.
There is, right, Rick, but there is no savings.
I
right
just
now.
gave you $8,500
There's only
right
two
there.
people on here that potentially, you know, and that's what I asked last time, who would jump if we offered the buyout? You know, and you come back with two potentials that, if you look at the numbers and you can't count that whole 12,000, you're not gonna, even with that, you're not gonna save money by doing this.
Do we have any more discussion?
Well, I think it makes sense myself. I know that some people might think it's self-serving, but if I can do something like I've done many times to save the township money, that's the goal. And what we did is we did an analysis that was brought to us by our insurance agent, who felt that this process, what we had proposed here, was something that would more likely than not save the township money above and beyond what we've already done by making the proposal that we did agree to at the last board meeting, and that was to move some retirees to a different plan. So I think it's a smart thing to do. We have an opportunity to test it. If it doesn't test out, we're not going to lose any money on it.
Yes, we will.
How?
Because it costs more for the extra buyouts than you're gonna save by the two potentials taking the buyout.
That chance, if the other individual chooses not to take the buyout, let's give that, then there's an $8,000 differential. So
Right, so you're.
you take the other individual out of the buyout, just the two people, then there's a $25,000 savings. Two people.
No.
Yes,
because
there
you're
is.
you're giving them half their premium back. So you can't count that whole premium. There is no savings to do this.
That's your
If it was,
opinion.
it's a fact.
That's your
You can see
opinion.
it by the numbers.
That's your
It's not an
opinion.
opinion, it's a fact.
All right, so vote.
Mrs. McDonald?
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
All right, thank you very much. All right, next item. Where are we at? Discussion of, well, okay, request for qualifications and proposal for new fire stations.
If I may,
Yes.
when I looked at this document, I think it stems from the board action back on August 9th to have this company do an analysis. I have concerns with it, and I'll try to be brief. It commits the township to using standard form contracts by the American Institute of Architects. I've not seen the current version of the contract spelled out in this request for qualification and proposals. It also calls for the design-build project to be controlled by the AIA General Conditions of Contract. I've not seen the current edition of that. I have seen AIA documents in the past and had occasion on behalf of municipalities to have them modified to make them more owner or municipal friendly than they are as they come out of the can. That's my primary concern with the township issuing this as is. There are some other items that I will not bore you with. My recommendation is if you want to move forward with this and the board is comfortable, that you authorize the request for qualifications and proposals to be issued once it's been approved by the township attorney. Then I can fine tune it and let Rick and Ken know, and they can go with it. It doesn't have to come back to you, or it comes back on your January 10th agenda.
Okay, well, I'll make the motion that we withhold the document until the attorney has gone through and given us an approval to move forward.
Okay. And if I may then, that's your motion. If you get support, I have a couple other.
Support.
I do recall that back on August 9th, the concept of design build was disclosed, and that is one approach to construction. There are others, more traditional, where the township would hire an architect, for instance, to draw up a design for these buildings, and then those designs would become the basis for requesting bids from contractors to build what was designed. And so there are other approaches as alternatives to design build. Issuing this does not commit you to this design build concept. At some point along the line, I think you want to also at least consider the other options and how those might relate to this approach. But
What is the purpose of this then?
of this approach, design build,
Right.
I have never signed off on a set of design build contract documents, but my understanding of the concept is you're hiring a team of professionals that not only design but construct what is designed, creating a better product because there's, it's seamless, if you will. But I could sit here and be devil's advocate and say I could see some downsides to that approach. But I believe the primary thing might be a cost savings.
Well, again, I'm kind of confused. Why are we doing this? The board's never discussed building any other buildings. What are we doing?
Yeah, we did. We agreed that we would take the partners would come back and supply us with a request for proposals. And we agreed that we would pay them $1,600 and some odd dollars for this product. And that product would then be put out to the public to give us ideas and concepts and costs.
I remember when we approved that, but I was surprised by this too, because I thought we were going to get back, and Ken did email us that, but he said it was a rough copy of it, right? You emailed what the people came back with about all these were lacking and deficiencies here. But I was surprised that instead of us discussing that document, that all of a sudden we have a proposal here, because I thought we would discuss that more and go in different steps. Because even to do this now, aren't we talking a millage or something? I mean, where is the budget for this that we're talking about going out for a proposal? Yeah.
The idea behind bringing partners in was they were gonna come in, do an assessment of our stations,
Right.
structurally, footprint-wise, needs for modern-day fire services, and then come back with a proposal. They can't give us a number on how much it's gonna cost us. By doing the design, the RFQ or RFP, we're asking for companies to come in and give us, hey, if you're gonna do this, this is what it's gonna cost. So in order for us to, if we are gonna go for a millage vote or however you decide that we're gonna fund this, we need to have that information up front so that we can follow through with it from there.
I just
And
guessed
that's all
that-
this is asking for.
Well, I thought we would be talking more about their request before we moved on to this. I was surprised that we
And this
moved
is
forward so quickly.
another reason that the design build request adds value is that in a lot of scenarios when you have a design build firm and they're competing against each other to see if they can make a proposal that this community would accept, they also would be inclined to give conceptual drawings of what they might propose. So instead of hiring an architect and getting one set of drawings or design, you may end up with 4, 5, 6 different concepts that you could then look at and say, we like this, the way this one works out. You don't necessarily have to hire that firm. These are just proposals. And then you can, but what you would get is dollars and cents applied to those potential concepts. So it broadens the scope of what the possibilities are for the design end, and it reduces the cost up front because you're not hiring an architect to design a building and then go ask for quotes on construction. What would this cost to construct it? So this is more to get an estimate on what it would cost, and then we've got something that we could take to the public at a later point in time and say, here's what our needs are, here's what the recommendations are to improve the fire department's facilities, and how much we estimate they're going to cost within a very close, reasonable amount, and whether there's enough. You need stuff to show the public. The public's one are going to be put forward with this concept. So if you're gonna add it for, go for a millage, you need to have something to show them. And that's kind of what this does without getting into the full-blown architectural component of it. So it adds concept, visual concept, and cost, estimated cost. And then that's the reason behind it, yes.
I tried to find the document that was before you on August 9th on your website today, and I didn't have luck with that. Does anyone happen to have that letter from that company, the proposal that you accepted? Because
We'll have it in
Want to
our
email it to you?
office.
You want it emailed or you want a hard copy?
No, I'm just in, I think Mary Pat mentioned she had expected to see that company provide cost estimates. Chief Chapman's saying that they say they can't. I'm trying to remember what their proposal said they could do
Well,
and would do.
I thought, like Mary, that it was gonna come back to the board, this is the needs assessment, this is what you need and how much you need and where it needs it. And I think that should come before the board as a proposal, or a presentation at least, before we go ahead with this, with this step.
Well, they did supply the needs assessment, that's what that document is. Tells you exactly how many
This
square
is
feet.
not a needs assessment. I mean, there's one part of here that outlines required spaces on page 9 of 16. There's a specification of what we are looking for. I will tell you, I have never seen a community use a bid process asking for actual cost to construct a building as a means to get cost estimates. I would find that, I mean, it's certainly legal, I mean, because you always reserve the right to reject any and all bids, but I'm not so sure that that's very fair to folks to ask them to take the time to look at what you've spec'd out and crunch their numbers and turn them in when you don't have any intention of entering into a contract on that at that point in time. I mean, you require, when you do bids, you require the bidder to hold their bid for a specified period of time. Usually it's 60 days, sometimes it's longer than that. That any time during that time you accept their bid, they are obligated to honor that bid and enter into the contract. But if there's a contemplation that doing this might be dependent on a millage proposal being presented in August or November of this year, I can't conceive of any company holding its bid, for that long. And quite frankly, that's something that's missing in this document, is a deadline, a period of time for which bids must be honored. So, as I'm listening to the board concerns here, I think maybe you want to hold off on approving this and having it issued without the board, doing more approval on it, maybe at the January meeting, and maybe some of these things can be cleared up. But I don't think Highland Township should use a formal bid process as a means to get cost estimates. I mean, if somebody, somebody is qualified that sees, okay, that community wants 2 buildings built, they've told us how many square feet they want, they've told us what they want in that building, if they can't give you an estimate of the construction cost, maybe they didn't contract to do that for us. That's why I was asking if somebody has that proposal.
Well, they gave us a quote for $1,600, and the amount of work that they put in was far exceeded $1,600.
I don't know if they contracted for $1,600 to provide you with an estimate of construction costs.
But let me read this. This is the scope of services. It is the intent of the township to issue a single contract for the total work required to accomplish the facility design, documentation, and construction of 2 new fire stations with necessary site improvements. The expectation is to receive a proposal that incorporates all space requirements indicated in the program and a process that allows for user group input as a part of the design process without materially increasing the cost of the work. It is expected the proposal, that's what we would receive, will allow for input from the owner team through concept design to final design, including material selection. The scope is to include at least 4 owner-user group meetings per station to review and refine the final design prior to site planning commission submittal, and 4 design development workshops prior to building permit application. The selected design build team may be contracted to continue services for demolition of existing fire station facilities once the new stations are complete, and other services the township may require or desire on similar but negotiated terms. The following guidelines are provided to assist teams in formulating a thorough response. The selected design builder will work closely with the township. So this is,
That's not what we approved on August 9th, though, is it?
No.
what
No,
we
we're
approved
talking-
was
To
to
have
have
a
them
needs
write.
assessment.
No, to write an RFP to go out for quotations.
I thought it was just a needs assessment, I didn't
No,
realize that.
it was to build an RFP, that's what it was for. So I don't have that document in front of me, I can't.
It's August 9th.
And I have shipped off a lot of the needs assessments based on the documents that I gave you before from the previous meeting with partners. They talked about the current conditions, sizes that you need for fire truck parking, for office space, stuff like that.
Right. Yeah, that's what I thought we'd be discussing.
Well, I think we're
But
maybe
we
the
paid
missing.
for a service from this company, and part of what that was supposed to be was a needs assessment, and that's what I want to see before, I mean, maybe the whole board doesn't want to go for 2 fire stations. I think we need to see that and, digest that before we jump to getting an RFP for 2 new buildings.
And I did forward everybody on the board those documents.
But like Mary said, that was a rough draft, I thought.
That was what they based all their information off of. This was the current document that you have is the RFP, which all that information went into making up the current document.
In other words, what happened is we had a committee, the chief, we had Pat O'Neill, was Pat here? So we had a firefighter, we had 3 in-house officials, and we're all part of that process of looking at how we're going to get to this request for proposals. And so the needs assessment was assessed on a committee basis in terms of what would you do what do we need. I think it's pretty clear that if you're going to look at what we have in terms of fire stations, fire station number 2, what can you do with that building? If the septic field goes out, that building's closed. You have a septic failure, that building's closed. We're out of a fire station completely. Where do you put the equipment that goes in there? Underneath tarps or a tent? So you need to address that that's a possibility. Then you need to also look at, which there were plenty of documents maps and stuff that Beth Corwin was also involved in this, that shows response times and where would be the recommended places to look to locate, to better locate the facility. So if you don't address the 2 conditions, one is we have a fire station at 6,500 square feet that isn't big enough to handle what we need to do. It's old, it's past its service life. It still is serving us, yes. But you have to look towards the future. At some point in time, you're gonna have to do this. It's gonna have to have a fire station. And maybe 2 new fire stations. And what you wanna be able to do is make sure that you service the community to the best of your ability.
I don't question that either, and I guess you said there was a committee meeting. So
Right.
we didn't know that, okay? So the other trustees that didn't know that this was discussed at all, and I guess that's where I have this, it's like this was information, kind of surprised me because we didn't discuss it as a board from the assessment.
Okay.
Item 9 on that just says prepare request for proposal documents and present the comment editing. So it's not a request for proposal, it's just presenting documents.
And that's what these are,
But,
documents.
when that was approved, Ken asked for help, assistance plan for the future, and included a quote from Axiom Partners to evaluate our buildings, functions, and needs, as well as assistant planning for the future. So that's what I expected to see back. you know, from them, is a report, and that the board could address at a board meeting, showing what are the needs, and, you know, and it has a whole list of what they were gonna do and how they were gonna do it, but we've not seen anything official. You know, I know you sent me some of the stuff, and I, like Mary, thought it was incomplete.
Well,
So
the thing
before
is-
we move ahead with this, I'd like to see what they're looking at.
Well, the assessment that he emailed out was pretty detailed as far as the problems, and I was.
Some of our current facilities, correct.
Right.
The rough part of it was what they proposed that we needed to replace it. They were overstating what size facilities we need, and I think you can see that in the final product that they presented. It was a more reasonable, more functional space. But the assessment we did on our current building was right on that.
So Ken, you spoke with them, then they gave you an assessment, and you said, well, wait a minute, we don't need it that big, I mean, so that there was some back and forth dialogue on that?
Oh,
then?
there was some major conversation at the
Okay.
table.
See, we didn't know that either, that those things, you know, it's kind of like we missed a step in there. You did it then, but we missed hearing about it. So, and then all of a sudden, this one, it's like, oh, are we here already? So I guess that's where the
I
disconnect
apologize,
is.
that's why I sent the information out to the whole board. We're getting to the end of the meeting processes, and I wanted to keep you all informed the whole time, so, or about the whole process, so.
So what are we asking again to do now? Yes. Where are we?
It seems to me that before you ask anyone for a quote or a proposal, that you folks, as a group, need to decide what you want that to be. And my initial comments were with the legalities of this particular document and legal issues. They have nothing to do with whether what's on, what I say, page 9 is what you want to do. You know, what you want to do in terms of one building or two and how many, you know. I really think that the board needs to come to a determination, and you've seen a lot of things I haven't. I haven't seen any of these needs assessments. But the board needs to decide, okay, what do we want to do in terms of future fire department buildings? Once you've come to that decision, then set about the process of finding how much it'll cost. I mean, once you have decided we want a new fire station 1 that is this many square feet, that has these facilities, we want a new fire station 2, or we don't, but, you know, that has this and this.
This document doesn't request, we're not asking people to give us we're asking them to give us your concepts and give us your ideas on what your estimated cost to do these things. We're not putting it out for bid at this point in time. We're putting it out to request the additional knowledge of what's involved, what's it gonna cost, and what conceptual things can you give us? We're sitting here, and I can tell you that I don't know too many people at this table that could sit down and look at a blueprint and understand what the blueprint meant. And so it needs to be something that has the conceptual components to it, asking these design build companies, what can you do for us? And if you looked at the information we've given you, what could you do for us? What kind of concepts might you present to us? And what do you think that might cost for those concepts? Until you put the thing out to bid to build, that's a whole different thing. And that's not what we're doing.
I'm reading from paragraph 4B that says, the township intends to execute the standard owner, design, builder agreement to contract this project. That's,
Okay, then that's a
what I'm reading.
misconception.
And I mean, so,
Well, I appreciate it. I think we definitely need to have it looked at, but, Ken?
The intention was to get the information so we can see how we have to plan for the future. Do we have to go after a bond? Do we have to go after a new millage? Do we have to, how do we prepare for tomorrow? Sitting through the information that partners gave us, I've been a fireman for 30 years. With the changes and the different directions that they're going with function rooms, decon areas. He's talking about doing decon areas from the outside of the building to the inside of the building so you don't contaminate your living spaces and spaces that people, our citizens come in and visit. I mean, they had so much information that's way beyond me. And I've been doing it for a long time. They did a wonderful job, pointing us in the right direction. I think they've got a plan that is workable. You know, we just have to figure out, is that what we want to do once we get the numbers back, or do we want to go after one? Do we want to go after two? What path do we want to take and how do we want to take it?
We can't.
I think that, Gary, what we need to do is the very first component, the description.
I'm sorry?
The description, in other words, on page 1.
Right.
The description, let's define that description so that it defines more closely what we thought we were heading for
Yeah,
here.
because I mean, it includes the statement, and including the complete new construction for fire stations 1 and 2.
And the board's never voted on that or even discussed that, and I'd like to have that discussion based on that report at the board table.
Yeah, I don't want my client asking people to bid on something my client hasn't approved. I mean, that's not a good thing.
All right, well, we need to redefine that, so that's why we're having this discussion now.
I would understand that we need to get somebody to put details together to see what these things might cost, whether it's 1 or 2. You know, that's what we need to do, but not.
I mean, and I don't do cost estimates, but I would think that for a fee, you could, you know, contact the right professional, whether it was a contractor or an architect or whatever, and say, here's the specs. We want to build a couple new fire stations. Here's what we want to have in them. What's the ballpark cost we're probably looking at?
Well, they can do that. We could do that. We were trying to not get to that, quite to that level at that point.
They could give us their cost estimates, but he said the cost estimates could vary anywhere from $50 less a square foot to $50 more a square foot, so $100 a square foot variance.
Who is they?
Depending,
Different builders.
Partners Consulting.
Actually.
They said depending on what company comes in, you can have a wide variety, and you'll see the differences mostly in the quality of materials that they provide you.
We need to redefine how we need to get to that. So that's a discussion I think we need to sit down and have.
I mean, you folks know what you would need to see. Each one of you may have individual needs. If I were sitting up there, I would want to see 2 things. I would want to see what is the buildings that are being recommended, and what's the ballpark costs that I'm looking at before I go any further. You know, somebody that works in this industry, which Partner, is it the name of the company, Partners does, they can hedge their bet, and you know, within $50 one way or the other. But at least you folks would then have something as a starting proposition. We're talking about $2 million, whatever it is.
Well,
and then you could plan accordingly.
Let me kind of give you a different perspective to that. If anybody here wanted to go get a picture of what a fire station could look at, like, go on the internet and look at fire stations. There's a bazillion different designs, and I mean, it could be, we'd all sit here and argue over which one did you like best. Now, did you like that one or do you like that one? And that's what it comes down to almost every time, is that do you hire a firm to design your fire stations? Or do you look for multiple firms to make recommendations on what they could do that might be different than somebody else? And the idea is to get more opportunity for different concepts and pull some people that maybe can think out of the box a little bit, maybe make some major cost savings, but give us something that is good for the next 100 years. If you hire an architect to design and build something, or to design something, you're going to get one design. And you're going to have to pay for one design. If you want 2, you'll pay for 2. They're completely different things. I mean, so there's ways to circumvent that. We could all sit down and beat each other up over what we think the best fire department is.
This item 8 says prepare budget options for various considerations, including food, better, best material choices, scheduling, escalation, and total project cost. Was that what they were supposed to do?
That's what the letter said.
Say,
Item 8, prepare budget options with various considerations including good, better, best material choices, scheduling, escalation, and total project cost. Is that project defined as building a fire station or just doing these remodels? I mean, that's services that they're providing here. The outline,
He's reading from the proposal in August.
is that just a piece of the request? That's all that is?
yeah, more or less.
No, that's what they do.
I'm gonna say that what we need to do is just pull this for
Yeah, we
right
need to table
discussion.
this.
If I may, Mr. Selvey, are you reading from the proposal that was acted on August 9th?
Yeah, I'm looking at that. Well, July 21st is what the date of the.
No, but,
Yeah.
Yeah, the August 9th is.
and that's what the board, I remember I put an A next to that item and you approved it. So, my recommendation would be to postpone this. Because I'm not, this document that got circulated for this agenda doesn't provide what Mr. Selvey just read from the proposal you accepted.
All right.
You need a motion.
Yeah, I move that we, I guess table is the right word in this case.
You retract your previous motion?
Yes, I retract my motion.
And that's embedded, it's embedded in the request for proposal. That's one of the options they embedded in the request for proposal, so.
Well, I'm sure this can be sorted out. You know, I would certainly suggest that you put the subject, the general subject on your January 10 agenda. Whatever you want to call it, but
Well, we're just gonna table this. I make a motion to table the discussion on it until,
Support.
January 10th, and we have further information, so.
That's a postponement, right?
yes,
Postpone? Yes.
table is to a later time in this meeting.
So clarification on that then, and where would we begin at the January one? Would we have this document, or we have a different document, something that you've looked over? I'm wondering where we would begin the discussion then in January, so that we can move forward with this.
Ideally, you have a document from partners that provides what the July 21 letter said they would provide. This may be part of that. It doesn't sound like this was exactly what was expected. But that's what you should have in front of you.
Well, we can take care of that.
And then you can have other things in front of you, such as this, such as a revised request. My biggest thing is this is committing the township to, leading people to believe you're ready to build some fire stations. Doesn't sound like you're there yet.
You need to get some estimates and some ideas to look at and go over, so.
Do you want to vote on this? Motion to postpone?
I need a second on it.
Joe seconded it.
Okay, vote please.
I vote yes.
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 Motion carries.
Okay, 8B. Chief, you wanna describe that one? Firefighters annual physicals?
Part of it, Iowa Part 74 requires annual physicals for employees in the fire service. Part 74 specifically covers firefighting in Michigan. There's a company in, just outside of Lansing, I can't remember where their exact home. It will come right out to our site, provide FBA 1583 compliant physicals, including TB testing. The amount that they charge us is approximately $70 less than what if we send our staff to the general place that we get our new hire physicals at currently. They do it over a 2-day period. We fill out all the questionnaires, we have sample jars, the whole 9 yards. It's all done in-house. It's a very efficient, neat process. We've done it for the last 3 years.
2.
This will be our 3rd year. This will be our 3rd year.
You're happy with the results they do, and everybody is?
We're very happy with them coming up and doing everything. Been a very neat process.
And that takes a board vote to approve that?
Because of the price, there's no other companies out there that can provide the service in-house like this that complies with NFPA 1583.
So in other words, it wasn't something that was put out for
We didn't
bid?
go out for bid for it, no. And the quote there is for 30 employees to get their annual physical. What we did last year is employees that had just been hired on within the last, I believe it was 6 or 8 months, we didn't require them to have another physical. So it will be a little bit less than 30, but it'll be pretty close to that ballpark.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve using BioCare to do on-site physicals for an approximate price to not exceed $10,000.
Support?
Okay, moved and supported, vote please.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
All right. Now, this next item, did everybody go and read all this information? Jeez, Pete. Tammy, it's your show. You get to.
Right. So it was an education for me too on this process. We're required to have an actuarial assessment, and the auditors couldn't really, they're not allowed to make recommendations for it. So I went and got an RFP from another town and used that one, and it turned out to be some really big proposals. And I know the pricing was tough to find in here, but basically what it came down to is two of the companies would charge $5,000 the first year and $1,500 the second year. And then the third company was $3,000 for the first year and either $2,000 or $3,000 the second year, depending on what level of analysis we wanted. The reason is there can be a different level of analysis is because I believe we qualify for, in the odd years can be done as sort of a rollover assessment. I forget what they call it exactly. But basically every other year you get a full assessment, and then in the other odd years you can get sort of an approximation that's a little bit less of a process for them. So this third company that wanted to charge $3,000 and either $2,000 or $3,000 for the following year is Nyhart. Is that how you say it? Did I get it right? Yeah, Nyhart. And it is one that when I talked with Rumsey and Pam at Plant Moran, they said they had worked with another customer who had used these guys, and they had a fine experience with no problem. So, and this was the only company that was willing to come out and meet with us on site. The other two would have charged extra to come out and meet on site with us. And their customer list that they shared with us are quite a few customers in our area. They seem to be kind of familiar with the Oakland County area, that kind of thing. So,
Is this something new, Tammy, or?
yes, it's brand new. In the past, the auditors were allowed to do the assessments.
All right.
And,
We had an actuary done quite a few years ago, and Plan Moran's just been kind of able to update it for us.
What are these state guidelines or federal that they come up with these
It's
things?
like federal, it's GASB,
Oh,
General
okay.
Accounting Standards Boards, rules. And it's coming out of the fact that there's so many jurisdictions that have overwhelming liabilities, and they're kind of playing fast and loose with some of their numbers and not reporting it consistently. So they're trying to make sure that, you know, governments are all reporting them the same way and being upfront and honest about what our liabilities are and our ability to meet them or not.
Well, thank you for checking into all of those and giving the prices for us.
Any other questions on these?
Did we contact the company that did our actuary last time?
It was Plant Moran. Oh, no, you're saying how long ago was that?
I don't know, 6, 7 years ago.
Yeah, I don't know, according to my knowledge, it was Plant Moran that had been doing it, so,
No, we had a company before that do it.
okay. No, I
Plan
didn't.
Miranda was.
They've just been updating it every year for us.
Right.
All right, well, we did send it out for request for proposals, and what we received is what we got. So-
Where'd you send it out?
I posted on Mitten.
All right,
I'll make a motion to accept the proposal from Nyhart to do our actuarial valuation for 2017 and 2018.
Do you have to say the cost in the motion too?
We'll say up to a total of $6,000 for the 2 years.
Support.
2 years.
Yes.
okay, it was moved and supported. Vote, please.
Mrs. Chenoweth?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
Okay, budget amendments. And
No,
our
there's separate ones on the.
treasurer's not here to fill in on this one, but Tammy, you want to do your best on this?
Sure. You know, these are kind of mostly year-end kind of cleanup things. The ZBA expenses and revenues were a bit higher than had been budgeted, so this is offsetting. And then the $1 million is the amount that we had appropriated in general fund for capital improvements, and this is just approving the balance of the transfer of the money from general fund into the capital improvements funds.
Anybody like to make a motion to approve?
I would move to approve the budget amendments as presented.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported. Vote, please.
Mr. Salvia?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
Okay, next item is activity center security position. Tammy, you were working closely with Amy on this. There's discussions of what's a subcontractor and what's an employee and so on and so forth.
Right, we have this Roy Fisher has been classified as an independent contractor, but when we started looking at it closely, I don't think he meets the qualifications as an independent contractor. And I believe he should be classified as an employee. So I'm suggesting that we bring him on a payroll and clean up that relationship and make sure it's kosher.
He would, excuse me, fall under the category like the crossing guards. They don't receive any additional benefits or.
Are they responsible to the township solely, or does he work for other people?
No, he only works
So
for
that
us.
definitely puts him off of
Yeah.
being
Right.
an independent contractor.
And so he would fall under what we have already classified as seasonal employment, I believe.
Right.
And generally, he's fallen under the level where 1099 would have been sufficient for a subcontractor, but it's just, he doesn't meet it, so you gotta be careful
How
not
much,
to be.
how much is the obligation annually, roughly?
$600 to $800.
Isn't it up to $6?
$600 to
Loaded,
$800.
but if it's under $6,
under
it could be a
$6.
1099
Could give it to-
employee. Is that what the?
Only if they're a subcontractor.
Right.
So we'd have to do a W-2, all that stuff for this individual.
There's-
But it takes us out of the shaky ground of qualifying him as an independent contractor when he doesn't meet the rules.
Do we have liability issues for the things he does?
We do either way. All right, so So
So we're
move
motion
to,
moving from a subcontractor to an employee.
Which I think we should, to hire him.
Yeah.
So, that 25 now?
Can I make a motion?
Oh, yeah, motion to,
speak up.
motion to move the individual to an employee status.
Right. At a rate of $9.25 an hour
Yes.
as a seasonal employee. And hours not to exceed 29 hours per week.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Support.
Moved and supported. Vote, please.
Mrs. McDonald?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
All right. Next item is, we need to make a motion to do this, right, Gary?
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to go into closed session to consider a confidential attorney-client privilege communication regarding complaint against township employee.
Do we want to do this one first?
What's that one?
This is the traffic signal.
Oh, back that up. You already said, I got too many arrows on my paper to.
Like mine?
Yeah, okay. The traffic signal, where did I put that piece of paper? Here it is. All right, in our safe routes to school, this was defined on the sheet that I handed out this evening. As you're aware, I'll read it so the public knows what we're talking about. Highland Township has received $670,000 in safe routes to school grant funds to improve routes so that children can walk safely to school. Highland partnered with Oakland County Road Commission and applied to MDOT for approval and committed $150,000 toward engineering fees that are not covered under the grant. One of the projects is to install sidewalks along Watkins Boulevard and to add a pedestrian crosswalk with a push-button signal at the traffic light at Milford Road and Watkins Boulevard. To be able to have a pedestrian signal, the existing traffic lights needs to be upgraded. The traffic light upgrade is not an allowable cost under the grant. RCOC has provided us with an estimate of $120,000 to upgrade the signal. The Road Commission of Oakland County will provide the engineering, installation, and maintenance of the upgraded signal. The traffic signal can be upgraded under agreement for traffic control device. If you look at the attached, we've done it before at that exact same location. That's how that light was installed. Where the RCOC, Highland Township, and Huron Valley Schools will split the actual cost of upgrade 3 ways, 33 1/3% each. Based on the estimate, each party will be responsible for $40,000 to upgrade the traffic signal to allow for pedestrians to cross Milford Road. Huron Valley School Board met December 11th and approved their commitment. Oakland County has already approved their commitment, and it's Highland Township's opportunity to be a positive partner in that by committing our third to make sure that happens.
I would move to, for Highland Township to pay 1/3 of it at the cost of $40,000 to upgrade the traffic signal at Milford and Watkins.
Support.
Moved and supported. Vote, please.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
Okay, the next
Budget
item
amendment.
is a budget amendment to cover that cost, and this is for 2018, so. Do you have you got that in there? Okay, so, can we get a motion on that?
I move to approve the budget amendment to cover the $40,000 for the cost of the traffic signal on the 2018 budget.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported. Vote, please.
Mrs. Chenoweth?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
All right, now, make the right start now.
Yes.
This is a motion to go into closed session to consider confidential attorney-client privilege communication regarding complaint against township employee. That's a motion. Support?
Support.
Okay, moved and supported. All in favor? Now let's vote, I guess.
Roll call. I vote yes.
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 Motion carries.
Okay, so we're gonna take a,
See if I ever share my notes.
okay, so, we're back in open session. Tammy, would you like to, make that motion?
I would make a motion to direct the township supervisor to address the complaint against the township employee in the manner outlined in the township attorney's confidential letter and closed session comments regarding that complaint.
Okay, support on that?
Support.
Okay, moved and supported. Vote, please.
I'm not ready. Mr. Sylvia?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
All right, next item is list of bills, November 29th, 2017, and December 13th, 2017, plus add-ons. Would you like to make a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the add-on submitted by Amy.
Well, and the other ones too? All of them?
All three.
Okay.
Okay, so there's a motion to approve the list of bills for 29th of November, 2017, and December 13th, 2017, plus add-ons. Can I get a second on that motion?
Support.
Okay, moved and supported. Vote, please.
Mrs. McDonald?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
Okay. Item number 11, public comment. Anybody have any public comment? Yes, sir. Would you please state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
All right, 3 minutes. Chandler Conley. I don't feel comfortable giving out my address because of being on the fire department. I didn't really want to come up and address the board, but in light of stuff going on, I felt this was the only way. And I think most of the people in here feel the same way. A lot of us are very, very disappointed in the board and especially Rick Hamill after what went down with Jim Crump. And the promise that you were going to make sure and visit the fire hall and make sure things were going well and going smoothly. And I don't think we've seen you since then, determining that. Things are not going well. It's a very caustic environment to work in right now. We have no voice. We have no, the majority of us feel this way. I don't want to put words in other people's mouths, but we don't really feel like there's any other option but to start coming here and addressing the board as a whole. There's many things that are not going well. There's intimidation going on, there's threatening going on, it's just a terrible place to be right now. And as a paid on-call department, people that are on the department want to be here. They're not here for the money. They're here to be on the department serving the community. That's why I'm here. 4 departments, 21 years on fire departments now. I'm not here for the money. I like leading, I like teaching, I like responding to calls, I like being up at the station working with people, and it's just not there. And it's something that you need to address. And to have a chief have 15 years get ousted the way that he did, and then for you guys to bring a new chief in and just hand him the reins and just go with no accountability, no checking on to make sure things are actually working. People I've talked to, I've said, how do you give somebody a position like that, and then the only person that's telling you guys things are going good is the person whose job relies on things going well. I know there's more of us want to be here tonight, but the snow, the weather and stuff and whatnot, and I think the majority of the people are here because of this, not obviously because we're not waiting around all night to stay out of the cold weather and whatnot. So I'm very disappointed. I've been on the department for over 13 years now, worked my way up. I like being a leader. I like serving the community. I don't like people calling me wanting to turn their gear in. It happens once or twice a week right now. That's not something I should have to deal with. you have a lot of people that don't want to do it anymore. And something needs to change, or we're just, I know you guys keep telling us that you want what's best for the fire department. Well, we've got to figure out what that is, because it's not what the direction things are going right now. I got 13 seconds left, but I'll leave it at that.
All right, anybody else want to make a public statement? All right, I'm not gonna say I appreciate any of that conversation, but, because I don't.
Should we have Gary kind of expound a little bit on the limits of our abilities to interact with firemen? Or is that something you'd want to speak to, or?
Well, it's my understanding that on occasion, board members are approached or asked by firefighters reporting situations. And that is a situation that puts the board member in a difficult posture, because each of you as an individual doesn't have the ability to do anything. As the ordinance is currently drafted, the fire chief, who I understand the complaints are about, is accountable to the township board, not to Mary or Joe or any of you individually, but to the township board. So what just occurred, where a firefighter came and addressed the township board, is the constructive way for firefighters to raise or address concerns. There's no requirement that the concerns be only from that podium. They can be addressed to the township board as a whole in writing, and can be dealt with much more constructively if it's handled in that fashion. So, but individual board members, in my opinion, and my recommendation, should not be meeting individually with one or groups of firefighters to listen to them air their grievances. The board as a whole needs to all hear or see or read the same things and concerns. That's the constructive way that this situation can be addressed by the board. It's not as convenient as normal day-to-day, discussions are, but when the entity is a group of people, that's you folks, all of you are entitled to hear the same thing or read the same thing. So you can all, have the same information upon which you make whatever decisions you might. I don't know if that is a...
And I was thinking specifically of Laura's recommendation or instruction that we cannot, as individual board members, get involved in the day-to-day issues with the township or with the fire department.
No, you can't. I mean, that, the fire department is, the responsibility for running the fire department is on the chief's shoulders. That's what the ordinance says. That's what you said, Chief, you run the fire department, and that's what his responsibility is. The ordinance currently says he's accountable to the township board, and if there are concerns that he is not running the department according to what the law or your ordinances or policies require, firefighters should certainly bring those to the board in its entirety attention. Concerns can be presented. They can be reviewed with legal assistance if needed to determine if a concern is running afoul of an expectation that the board has provided the chief with. Many complaints may boil down to a difference of management style. Intimidation and threats are two of the words that Captain Connolly referenced. Some people take communications differently than others. But it has to come to you folks as a group. And individually, none of you can do anything, and none of you should try to do anything. In terms of, it's not any individual board member's task, job, responsibility to try to solve the problem. And to be asked to do that is unfair to the board members. It's not fair to ask Brian to come sit down with us for coffee, on Saturday morning. We've got some stuff we want to tell you. If he's going to follow my advice, he's going to say, no, the township attorney said I should not do this. And it's not out of disrespect, it's not out of trying to be rude, it's just to recognize that you folks act as a group. So I hope that the folks that would like to tell each of you their concerns and ask you to try to help solve them can appreciate that. So either there or in written form, submitted care of the clerk, addressed to the township board in its entirety. And that would be the proper way to present the concerns.
You got a public comment?
Yeah. Rob Young, I'm not going to give my address for the same reasons as Captain Conley stated. I just have a question. Are these not our elected officials that we voted here, and are we not their constituents? So if we had a problem, wouldn't this be who we would talk to, whether it's however?
You should talk to the entire board at the same time.
Right, no, I understand that, but if you have an individual that has a problem within the community that they want to address and they go to Brian and say, hey, this is what's going on, is that, you're saying that shouldn't happen either? That should also be.
That's not what I said. I'm addressing a very specific situation, which is township employees complaining about the fire chief to individual township board members when those individual board members have no ability to do anything.
But doesn't that, speaking with the individuals here, whether, you get too many in a group, you gotta have, what's that word I'm looking for? Thank you.
A meeting, yes, that's
But
exactly what you have to
because
have.
they're elected by the individuals that are here, don't we have the right to still be able to speak to our elected officials? Is my question.
Not about an employment issue.
Right,
That's where you're
That's
running
not
out.
the issue, and that's what we're trying to say.
And I'm looking for clarification, that's all I'm looking for.
I'm addressing township employees having that, with concerns about the fire chief, how those concerns should be properly presented.
So if a citizen came to and had a complaint in regards to me, in regards to the fire department, they would need to come here directly to file that complaint? They couldn't go, well, I'm just saying, the way it seems, and I get what you're saying, that Chief Chapman is responsible to the board. Get that, I understand that. But I don't understand why you're stating that an individual that is elected cannot speak with somebody individually.
I think it's a specific issue. If you had a problem with a neighbor,
Okay.
you called me and said, hey, we're having issues here, I'd like to have you come out and talk to you. I think that's different because it's not an employment issue. That's what we're saying here. Now, you come to me and you.
But it's not necessary.
But you're not talking about employment, it's something that's happening, it might be an ordinance issue, you're talking about something that's going on in the township.
I'll try to be more direct about it. Every member of the fire department ultimately answers to the chief.
Correct.
He runs the department.
Correct.
So if you got a problem with the way he runs the department, you take that to the group that can do something about it. You don't take it to one of the members of the group, you take it to all of them.
This is the whole group.
It's as simple as that. Under the current ordinance, the chain of command goes from the bottom of the fire department to the chief, to this group of 7 people if Judy were here. It doesn't go to Brian, it doesn't go to Mary Pat, or Mary down at that end. It goes to the group as a whole.
Okay. Just looking for
No, it's a good
clarification.
question. No, it's a good question. I
That's
understand, yeah.
all I was
Yep.
questioning.
I'll be very cautious. Yes, you're sitting in front of the board and it is a public meeting. But what helps is if you had a grievance that you wanted to bring to the board, what the attorney is saying, put it in writing so that we have something that everybody can see and be able to address on an individual basis so that when they come to the board table, they can work as a unit, as a board. To come in and one-on-one stand up and air a grievance, creates a lot of issues in a lot of different ways. Number one, this is recorded, this is public, and you may want the public to know this. But at the other end of it, think about much larger ramifications. I'll use an example. Say, I think that some of the issues that people have is, you heard some comments from the board about how we spend money. Should we be doing this thing with insurance? You know, should we be saving money? How do we do these different things? Payroll's one of those things. How do we allocate money to individuals? Well, we get our money from taxpayers to be able to pay everybody in here. So if we do things in a manner that doesn't necessarily need to upset the taxpayers, but can maybe be solved in a more legitimate, position. In other words, if the board is going to respond to something, let's get all the grievance together and put it together in a package. It happened once before, and it got presented to the board, and the board had to act on it. But we got it presented in writing. Now, is that the best way to do it? That's the appropriate way, apparently, but the best way is work with your chain of command first. So, in saying that, what I'm getting at, and you guys have heard me over and over again, I have been trying as hard as I can to keep the public aware of how important it is that you guys have the tools you need. Also, the pay that you need. And that's done through the millage. The chief can only spend what revenue comes in, and when things need to be fixed, corrected, maybe they've been neglected for years and now it's time to replace them, you have to have an avenue for that revenue to come in. If we poke a hole in that by going to the public and blowing this whole thing up into something that maybe it's not, then the public's going to have no confidence in any of us. No confidence in the fire department, no confidence in the township board, and they're going to behave just like they behave against the school board. And the school board's having a heck of a time, and they've got multiple communities to try and make it so that the students can get the education they need. How are we going to get the revenue to make sure that you guys can get the pay that you need to get? If you poke it in a hole in it by eliminating the opportunity to even go ask for a millage from the start, that's going to be a disaster for everybody. And that's what seems to be, for me, is very hurtful, because I have been trying to get the public to understand that you guys work for less than what the garbage company collects for. They're paying more money to pick their trash up than they are for you guys. It doesn't make sense to me. So everything that we've been doing is to try and make that the right avenue and the right movement to move forward. And to work with the chief, he has to put his budget together and we have to approve it. Now, I'm going to make a comment about most people do not understand how the budget works in municipal government. You can look at pieces of paper and it looks like somebody might be getting, some additional money, or we spent, $750,000 on a fire truck. No, that money was collected over years through that millage to be able to make that happen. If you don't collect that money and you don't plan ahead for that, you won't have those things. You won't have the money for the gear that you guys need. And the ever escalating cost of every one of these pieces of equipment that you guys need. It's critical that we work together to make that happen, not work against the process. There's obviously some unhappiness here, and I think that what needs to happen is we need to try and buck up as a team. I know you guys are teaming it, but buck up as a team to see where this is. Give us your grievances, write them on paper, let us help find a way to address them, and then we can move forward. But there's things like the attorney said. Most people believe that I, as an individual, Rick Hamill, Township Supervisor, has some unknown authority. I have 1 vote in 7. I have no more horsepower to do anything than anybody else on this board. And to assume that I do is exactly that. It's assumption. And you've heard the old adage, make an ass of you and me. And that's what happens. We do that to each other by making these assumptions that we can do things we can't do. I can't change the fire department individually. Nobody else in this board can change the fire department individually. Guess what? The fire department has to work together to figure out how to make that work, because that's the boss. And the way it's laid out is, and I'll give you another example, this lady right here does not report to me. She has her own team of employees, and she reports directly to the whole board. The same thing with the treasurer. They don't report to me. So I don't have any authority over anybody. The only thing I am is I'm the one that gets the head smacked up left and right from everybody complaining about everybody else doing everything wrong. It's not fun, and I didn't intend it to be a fun event, but we can only do it as a whole, as a board. And there's a lot of decisions we make that we spend money, but we also look at how we spend the money to make sure that what has been given to us is spent in a realistic and beneficial way to the community as a whole. They will say to the police and to the fire and to the library, you're doing a great job. Yeah, we'll vote for a millage because we know that we're going to get our money back in that. We're going to get our return on that. But if we poke it in the eye before it even has an opportunity, guess what? Elections only come certain times. One's coming up. It's got to get on a ballot. Are we going to do this kind of thing together and try and make a better fire department, or are we going to sink it before it even gets out of the ship, even gets out of the port? And so work together. It's not always fun.
We gotta working together. Do not sink the ship.
Don't sink the ship. And that's another thing. There's an old saying, the partnership, which all you guys are, is a leaky ship. So carry enough corks in your pocket to help plug the holes. But think about how can we go about doing that without sinking the ship from a whole different direction. We're going to get ourselves blindsided if we don't look around us as a community and say, why are we here in the first place? It's because we have a public that says we're willing to give X number of dollars to see that you guys have the tools you need to make us a safer community. And those tools include hiring a full-time individual that has to try and figure out how to make that all work. And at the same time, how to be able to set it up so that we can get everybody to work together. We've had issues in the past. We need to get past that. We haven't gotten past that.
We've gotten worse.
And that's what we got to look at. How can we got to? If you guys are upset, talk to yourselves. How can we make it better? But look at it from a perspective of how can you actually make it better, and not by how can you
make it better. Right there's the problem.
Yeah, right on the head.
write it down, give it to us. That's the only thing I can say. So I appreciate, I appreciate everything that you guys do, and I'm very baffled by the fact that, one Chandler that you say I never come over there. I have to beg to differ with you. I come over there a couple times every week.
And talk to who?
I walk in and I talk to the chief, I look at what's going on
I'm
there.
over there like 5 days a week.
You have seen me, Gary.
No, I
You
haven't.
have too.
Okay. No, I haven't. I've spoken to you specifically about certain issues like the well that you said 5 years ago you were gonna fix that you never did. But I don't see you over there. I'm over there all the time.
That's your opinion, and I know where I've been, so
Right,
would
it's
like
my
it.
opinion, right.
Okay, enough of that.
Yeah.
Thank you for showing up tonight, and on that, any more comments? You got your opportunity.
I don't even remember.
All right. Meeting adjourned.